The current dilemma surrounding ARC Raiders right now is not stopping anytime soon, unfortunately. So let me catch you up real quick, and then we can start with what's happening that's new. So ARC Raiders got slammed with a 4 out of 10 review from Eurogamer recently, claiming that while the game is fun to play and is well made, that its use of generative AI voice lines specifically for your player character and the random NPCs in the main hub screen were, in Eurogamer's words, completely unethical, and they could not support the use of such technology because in their eyes, it replaced the human element behind what makes video games special. Since this review has dropped, a lot more has been said, and developers I didn't think would speak on this have done so now too. But it's more than that, because there's also a collective message that's being born somewhat out of this ARC Raiders situation, and you're going to see a lot of developers that are throwing ARC Raiders under the bus in this video. Some of them are calling for a boycott, and so much more. It's a mess, guys. But this is all simply that the industry just doesn't want to squash this AI stuff into dust, but they're also framing it as that if you even now play ARC Raiders, that you are now part of the problem. So now that you're all caught up pretty much, let's now focus on the new stuff. So Nexon, that's the publisher of ARC Raiders, recently got interviewed. Their CEO, Jung-Hun Lee, was the guy who was put up to task to now defend the use of generative AI in ARC Raiders. And this interview was then referenced here by automaton.com titled, "It's important to assume every game company is now using AI." Nexon CEO comments following ARC Raiders launch. As also seen here, Nexon CEO then makes it very clear where I highlighted it in red that Nexon believes its use of AI is just because it helps alleviate a certain amount of workload from their actual development teams that they own, and it's all meant to maintain a sustainable size of a studio. So I guess what Nexon CEO is saying here in other terms is that AI allows Nexon to keep their studios like Embark that makes ARC Raiders on the smaller side by prioritizing AI. This way their budget doesn't implode through the roof and drive costs out the window. Now, is that a good thing? It depends on who you ask, really. If you're a pro-human always, you're likely rather make these companies hire more people to fulfill the jobs that these AI programs help with because you think it's the morally right thing to do. But if you're pro-business, you're obviously going to favor AI because it does the job without you needing to pay them. So I'll just say this now, is this a messy situation? Oh yeah, dude, 100%. No two ways about it. And if you want more content, consider subscribing, liking the video, and all that. Thanks, guys. But Nexon CEO was then asked, how will AI affect the future of their company's games across everything? The CEO then said this: AI has definitely improved efficiency in both game production and live service operations. In that sense, the CEO personally considers that the overall average quality level of games has been steadily rising. Their CEO then continued, first of all, I think it's important to assume that every game company is now using AI, but if everyone is working with the same or similar technologies, the real question becomes, how do you survive? I believe it's important to choose a strategy that increases your competitiveness. This is an important distinction because the CEO is not saying that AI will 100% replace game developers because, well, as of now anyways, that's impossible. But that he does believe that if you don't use AI to some capacity, that you are working at a disadvantage. Think of it sort of like when humanity started to discover how to use gunpowder to make guns for warfare. Obviously, the nations that were implementing guns into their armies were at a massive advantage over others that either didn't know what gunpowder was or refused to use it, I guess. And then the discrepancy of power was what obviously led to the power dynamics that we have today. Imagine how different the world would have looked today if every nation that fought for land and power back then had the same tools and the technology at their disposal. So when you guys think of AI, I like to think of it like that, okay? It's sort of like gunpowder. It's discovering maybe even the automobile. It's figuring out that you can also use planes to not just, transport people, but to drop bombs on others. It's like the next big thing that's frankly, no matter what we say or do, it's inevitable. Does it mean that I'm okay with all of it? I don't personally want it to replace humans if I'm being real, but there has to be a give or take that is realistic to the scenario is what I'm saying. If AI is being used to remove the mundane tasks that slow down development for many games that would otherwise just waste these developers' times more often than not, then is that not a net positive? I figured I would go look for maybe another CEO type and see if I could find what they would say about this. And when you look at that, it turns out that none other than Gabe Newell, the guy who owns and runs Steam, also spoke on this a few months ago too. This comes from Games Radar. Steam founder Gabe Newell predicts AI will be 10 times as significant as the impact of CGI, tells film directors to act more like 19-year-olds with chatbot girlfriends and actually use this tool. So Gabe Newell would say in this interview about AI that it is, like I said, inevitable. Here's what he said. If you're a filmmaker and you don't understand how to use AI, you're really going to struggle in the not too distant future. Gabe Newell will then say this: I think it's both, and I think the more you understand what underlies these current tools, the more effective you are at taking advantage of them. But I think we'll be in this funny situation where people who don't know how to program, who use AI to scaffold their programming abilities, will become more effective developers of value than people who've been programming, for a decade. I mean, that's a wild statement, but again, this is Gabe Newell of all people saying this. So I mean, if anyone who knows what they're talking about here, it's probably the guy who owns and runs the biggest PC storefront in video games. But Gabe then continues further. Even if you're just a pure tool user, you're going to find that the gains to utilizing those tools are very, very high. But your ability to use those tools will continue to improve the more you understand the underlying methods and mindsets of people developing machine learning systems. So I think it's both, and I think they're highly complementary. So overall, Gabe Newell firmly believes that the game industry and film and everything else is rallying against the inevitable when it comes to artificial intelligence. He knows from what he's obviously seen with Steam that AI will become the future of not just games, but literally just everything. Although, obviously, there are lots of logistics and whataboutisms when it comes to AI too, like if someone just uses AI to make a game, they could be using character models, exact animations, or more from other games without even realizing it because the AI just obviously pulls from what already exists. But circling this back to Nexon and Arc Raiders, it seems like the people at the top, the business people, like I've shown, have very similar opinions on all of this. Nexon CEO thinks Arc Raiders using AI is a just cause because it's only going to make them faster at both delivering content and meeting the needs and wants of their users. And especially since Arc Raiders is a live service game, that demand in meeting it is going to be really important the further the game's lifespan goes on. Embark and Nexon also confirmed, as seen here, that Arc Raiders has already crossed over 700,000 concurrent players across all platforms. That's how many people are just playing the game at any given time. The actual sales numbers for Arc Raiders currently, as of this video anyways, is somewhere near 4 million plus units sold, which for a game that's only $50 Canadian, that's a big success for a game that's this size. This is why I continue to say that games that are made for cheaper, sold cheaper, and specialize in what they're offering are going to become the new normal in video games, like mark my words. After all, the three runner-ups pretty much this year for Game of the Year is what? Clair Obscur, Silk Song, and Hades 2. They're all games not being sold at full premium price points. Instead, like Arc Raiders as well, they just focus on what they're good at and then they just do those things great. So some developers, however, are already pushing back against Arc Raiders either way and using it almost as a way to show that their games, I guess, are better. One of the examples is Necrosoft Games, which makes a game called Demon School. They said this recently while retweeting the Automaton Arc Raiders article. Not only do we not use AI, we would rather cut off our own arms than do so. Demon School is 100% human-made. So, I guess now if you play Arc Raiders or consume anything it does, you're now an AI apologist and you'll be used as a gotcha now if you do, which is, well, interesting to say the least. We also then have a cosplayer of all things here, as you can see, saying that if a game uses generative AI, that now immediately makes the game a flat 0 out of 10 for them, which I found interesting too. So, we've now reached a point quickly where any use of AI is immediately met with shunning the game entirely. And now Arc Raiders is damaged good, I guess, to people like this. I can't even show the follow-up picture that I want to show because it's just not safe for work, but this same cosplayer has a photo of themselves holding the Cyberpunk 2077 art book. But what's really interesting is that CD Projekt Red has also admitted to using generative AI in their expansion Phantom Liberty, specifically because, as seen here, one of the actors who voiced a character in Cyberpunk 2077 unfortunately passed away before Phantom Liberty was completed. So CD then used generative AI with consent from the actor's family to then make an AI-generated voice of the actor to help finish his lines in the game. Now, personally, I'm not trying to use this as some gotcha against this cosplayer or anyone else, but I think still you can't exactly be against generative AI and also champion, say, Cyberpunk when they've used it too. Regardless of the context in which it was used, they still objectively used it. And I'm also not trying to attack CDPR here or say you should boycott them. No, none of that, okay? I'm not saying that at all. I get why they used it, because again, the actor passed away. But again, if we're going to just hard cut off any game that now uses generative AI, I feel like that is just not the way to do it, because it's obviously going to be hypocritical no matter how you slice it. Because I would frankly argue how CDPR used it here with Cyberpunk was more of a need for consistency's sake, so I think just straight up saying that all generative AI use is now an instant 0 out of 10 is just, it's not a statement I feel comfortable saying myself, because it's just not realistic. Can we agree on that? Because it's like anything else, the use of AI is going to be broad. If we just cut off generative AI completely, it would have impacted games like Cyberpunk, as I just mentioned. Like, was it unethical as CDPR to do that despite having the family's wishes? I guess that's up for whoever else to decide, but I would wager in that specific example how CDPR used generative AI was a net positive, not only for the game, but also to honor that actor's voice, because again, his character was important to the world of Cyberpunk. So they wanted him in the game, but again, he passed away, unfortunately. Like, you see what I mean? I'm not trying to start a fight with anyone here. All I'm saying is that this whole we must cut it at the knees approach to anything we disagree with is clearly already getting muddier as time goes on for very obvious reasons. Circling back to Arc Raiders and their CEO, he did close out his comments with that interview stating that he believes that human creativity is always going to be the heart of making video games. It's stated here for you all to see. He does objectively believe that human beings will always be important, but he also firmly believes that to reject AI in total is a net negative for the future of gaming as well. After all, AI is used all over games for decades now to varying degrees. Obviously, you have enemy behaviors, those are AI. We all know this, but AI machine learning has also been used by developers aplenty when it comes to creating full landscapes and open worlds, for example, too. Obviously, creating an open world takes a lot of work, and you may wonder when playing, say, Arc Raiders or even Elden Ring, how the developers created these maps where specific parts of the map have bumps in them or sinkholes, how they're able to even make something so large so quickly. And a lot of that is actually done with AI. Not saying that every game does that, but it's the truth either way. You can just use AI machine learning to map you out a rough sketch of your world before you have the human hands go in and fix everything. Obviously, before the open world games like in the past didn't do this. For example, Skyrim and games around that time period, those were all 100% handcrafted by developers. However, games these days, they do use procedural generation. Think No Man's Sky is a great example of this, where every world is not handmade. Instead, it's worlds generated through an algorithm using certain prompts. Sort of like how people use AI to make pictures and whatnot too. Procedural generation was kind of the precursor to what AI machine learning has become now pretty much. While procedural generation isn't technically labeled as AI, machine learning is 100% AI driven. Like, that's just a fact. You can't say anything. It just is what it is, man. I don't know. Like, you're going to be seeing machine learning, or ML for short, just being used way more in games in the future. I mean, it's already happening. Pretty much every single roguelite game to some capacity is using this technology to help map out their worlds or their levels immediately, for example. Like, there's a game called Prologue way back. That's a game that uses machine learning quite a bit, and it's only going to be used more in the future. Does that mean that games like No Man's Sky or Prologue are now 0 out of 10 and lazily made? Of course not. But again, you gotta be insane if you think that Hello Games with a No Man's Sky could be able to generate you a billion handcrafted worlds. Like, it just is impossible. So like I've been saying, there's ethical uses of AI from the Cyberpunk voice actor that I would argue is a good thing, or say machine learning worlds made for games meant to have different layouts, which is also, let's be honest, a good thing. Although where I guess personally draw the line is, say, when a whole game is maybe made by AI. Like, there's plenty of AI slop on storefronts already. You can find it everywhere. But I think Gabe Newell is right when he said that anyone not using AI to some capacity, they will be at a disadvantage. Even YouTube has been using AI for many functions. Am I happy about that? Not really, to be honest, but it is there. As seen here recently, an AI mishap on YouTube actually led to thousands of channels of all sizes being mass deleted from YouTube. It was an error, YouTube admits, but it happened. They have been, reinstating people, but that sort of thing scares me greatly, because obviously my job is this channel. My livelihood is what you're watching right now. This is why personally, I don't think we can rely 100% on AI for everything. There has to be a human element at the core, otherwise bad things will happen. And Arc Raiders is that, right? It uses AI, but they're still human at the core. But with Arc Raiders, I think the industry sort of is using it as a litmus test almost to now filter people to see what side they're kind of on, which is sort of disingenuous too. It's not really fair that Arc Raiders should be dogpiled or attacked from all of these websites who are all making articles about their use of generative AI voice lines, and then positioning in a way where Arc Raiders is now the greatest evil that must be eliminated at all costs. Like, this news is widespread. Look here, a simple Google search will give me like 5 articles just right there, some rated just hours ago as of me writing this video. And of course, if I hit more, I'll be shown even more websites all dogpiling on Arc Raiders, saying it's pretty much the worst thing ever because it uses generative AI voice lines now too, even though previous games have done that too, but they're not bringing those up because that's not the gotcha right now, I guess. It just sounds like they're trying to force a boycott out of this, like they want this game to be made an example to dissuade other companies in the future from doing similar things, even though they've already done these things. Although some of the arguments made both online and in articles for Arc Raiders is that its use of generative AI voice lines for your raider is actually ethical. Because not everyone wants their voices to be used in games where they play in such a game. Some people prefer pre-recorded voice lines as their means of communication with other players. Why, you may be asking? Well, it could be a lot of things. Maybe it's a female player who doesn't want people they play with randomly in a game to know that they're a woman. Because obviously some guys out there will hear a woman voice and they will get really weird about it. If you played Call of Duty or something, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or the player playing could be a literal child who doesn't want adults finding out that they're a kid, so they would, go into their DMs, which I hate to say that, but that's another possibility too. So these voice lines that are generated by Arc Raiders allows the players who want to keep their anonymity secret a way for them to express what they still want to say in the game without having to actually speak themselves. It's a use of AI, it just is, but I also don't like how the gaming news websites where I could just, flash article after article on this debate if I wanted to, are all just unanimously painting Arc Raiders as some evil game that just shouldn't be supported by anybody now. Because if you've played it, the game is objectively good. The combat, the world, the art design, well, besides the characters, they're kind of, not the best looking, but the retro design to its world and such is all objectively good. All of that and then some is made by human hands, 100%. That is confirmed by Embark and Nexon. And like I said in my previous video about this, your voice, as in you the player, you are actually the real voice of your raiders anyways. That's how it's intended to be. I really think the only line I hear someone say using the generative voice lines in Arc Raiders all the time is "don't shoot" whenever I see them, which I mean, that's obvious why they would use that. But besides that one line, it's usually always someone's real voice that I hear, which I think Embark and Nexon always believed was going to be the heart and soul of Arc Raiders anyways. Although what I'm also thinking is going to happen is this push to label Arc Raiders as this evil corporation game is likely going to affect its nomination possibilities as well. Sort of in the same way how before if you didn't bow to DEI slop you wouldn't get nominated, I'd wager the same is going to happen with AI use too. So if your game uses AI in whatever way the industry finds unethical at that point, you're probably going to get blacklisted to some degree too. But at least Embark is listening to feedback with Arc Raiders, because as seen here, IGN reported that Embark is officially dropping the prices of their paid cosmetics in their storefront effective on November 13, 2025. They will also be refunding anyone who bought these paid cosmetics prior to this price change the difference as well. So Embark is also, by the way, adding duo queues to the game so you can play with another friend if you want to do that instead of playing solo or trios. Those are welcome changes. I like that. I'm keen to see what the new prices are, although by the time this video comes out, I won't have that info until later, but I guess we'll see. But then you also had developers like Jonathan Blow, who made Braid and The Witness. He chimed in on Arc Raiders' Eurogamer score, as seen here, his initial response to the single word at wow at the rating. Jonathan then further states that the Arc Raiders score is brutal. Here's what he said. For those who don't understand how brutal the score is, unlike movies, etc., video games have historically operated on the 7 to 9 scale. A score like a 4 was reserved for games that don't even start up consistently because they are too buggy. Jonathan then takes a jab at the games journalist, I guess, and he said this. It would actually be a useful and interesting piece of game journalism to cover exactly what Arc Raiders accomplishes with its voice generation. That pushes the boundary of what games are able to do, but nobody seems interested in writing that article. I wonder why. Well, they won't write that article because, like the industry and journalists always do, they just dogpile and tear down any game that actually does well or steps out of the line really in any single way that is out of the norm. They did it to Clair Obscur, they did it to Baldur's Gate, they did it to Elden Ring, Silksong, Hogwarts Legacy, basically any game that gave you content or was doing well or was worth the price or I guess went against anything they believed in any single way. These journalists just will equally praise these games and also banish these games, trying to make examples out of every them for all kinds of reasons. So I guess you can now add Arc Raiders to that list of games too. It should have been celebrated for being a fun game that was cheaper to buy, but now it'll be seen as a social pariah. And this one single review by Eurogamer will now be a stain on its legacy, used as a rallying cry from people who, like usual, likely haven't even played the game themselves. Instead, they're just dogpiling because they see it as being socially acceptable to do so, which doesn't surprise me at all if I'm being honest. Because the people virtue signaling on Twitter how they'll never play Arc Raiders because of the use of generative AI, they weren't playing the game to begin with, let's be real. Which kind of just fuels the meme that these people don't even play the games they talk about, which gee, that's not surprising at all for any of us, is it? Like here's some animator on Twitter virtue signaling that any interest they had in Arc Raiders is now gone due to AI. Interest, huh? You did not buy the game before this, did you? Are you just sitting there to virtue signal? It's probably the latter, let's be real. And here's another user, Slasher, stating that the whole boycott thing that's brewing on places like Blue Sky are also pointless. Because the people claiming to boycott Arc Raiders are probably the same people who use ChatGPT to write their gaming journalism articles anyways. You even had Gfinity, as seen here, write a whole article on how Blue Sky, for example, is also boycotting Arc Raiders like Slasher said. Oh no, not Blue Sky, not the place place where it's an echo chamber of people, all trying to out virtue signal each other constantly. How will Arc Raiders survive Blue Sky of all things? Like, none of these people on Blue Sky even play Arc Raiders either way, because most of them don't even have the money to buy things, let's be honest. Because if they did have the money to buy the games they apparently championed over the years, then all the games they were for wouldn't be failing like they have in the past. These people don't buy the games they white knight for anyways. Arc Raiders could have been the next coming of God himself. They still wouldn't support it. And as seen here from Gfinity's example, you got another user saying that the game is using AI even though it's publicly stated in their Steam page, and that it's awful even though, again, they publicly stated it, and then someone else saying the game is terrible now, we must all boycott it. Alright, good luck with that, I guess. Because the game has already sold over 4 million units, like I said, has over 700,000 concurrent players, and they just dropped the price of cosmetics too. And there's tons of more content coming in like November and December this year alone. They're all made by human hands, by the way, too. And I guess if these people don't want to be hypocrites, I hope they never played or enjoyed Cyberpunk, because again, it used generative AI, or played any game that used machine learning, because that's also AI. Like, again, where does this virtue signaling nonsense end exactly? Because when you start going down this path, it just gets like ridiculous really quickly, dude. Like, here's another game called Unbeatable, which decided to also dunk on Arc Raiders, and here's what they said. Every single frame of animation, in-house developed sound effect, line of code, visual asset, chart, and line of dialogue was done by a human and done without using generative AI tools in the making of Unbeatable. Okay, but Arc Raiders also used humans just like you guys did to make their enemies and their worlds and their guns and their sound effects and all of that too. The AI is limited to just the Raider pinpointing stuff in the world and random NPCs that walk past your character in the hub screen. But if you took this post by Unbeatable at face value, it makes it seem like Arc Raiders is just made by a bunch of robots and there were no humans involved, which is disingenuous and wrong because it's not true at all. Like, you see what I mean? It just takes a bit and immediately everyone just turns on you like this. Like, isn't that wild? I guess so much for a global gaming developer community and having each other's backs and all that, I guess. Instead, it really is just every man for themselves out here, and game dev studios will just throw each other under the bus if it means propping themselves up higher up the ladder. Proving my point that I've made in so many videos again and again, which is that it doesn't matter what industry you're in. A lot of people really just aren't your friends, man. You're just conveniently an ally until you're not. And now you're seeing in real time how fast you can go from being the new industry darling to social pariah in like record time. Either way, I still don't think that any of this will affect Arc Raiders' trajectory or their numbers at all. I think the game will just continue to grow. I think at best, maybe Embark will take the criticism to heart and maybe change those lines back to just being human voice actors all the time to just appease all these people maybe, but should they? Would that be a sign of weakness, or is that morally the right thing to do? I guess let me know in the comments. But is it sobering at least to see how the industry truly will just throw each other into the grave if it means making themselves look better? Yep, I think that's scummy either way, and it's very telling because again, these people have played games in the past and supported them that have used generative AI and all that before, but now it's an issue. Okay, I think it's very telling, it's hypocritical, and it's kind of annoying, but it is what it is. But let me know what you think. Thank you for watching, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.